This is the third episode of Paying for College Using a Team Approach. In episode 1 and 2, you have learned that the team approach is a way of simply breaking down the college costs into smaller pieces. Each piece kind of becomes a team member. Seems kind of crazy, but it's the method that we used in sending our kids to college, and it worked out terrific. Now, if you like learning about ways to pay for college in this series, tap on the subscribe icon and the chime icon, and wow, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up. Keeps me motivated. Today we're going to meet a new team member, and I called this one Work Study. And I'm going to start off with a comment, a really interesting comment from one of my subscribers, who goes by the rather creative name of SpongeBob Square Perts. Yeah, that's right. You heard that right. And this subscriber makes this point about work study. College is so expensive and work study doesn't seem to pay very much. I wonder if it's even worth my time in trying to apply for it. That's an excellent point, and it doesn't seem like much, but let's dive into this and see if it can make a reasonable contribution to the overall college expense. First thing, let's define what work study is. Work study is simply a part-time job that's given by the federal government or by your college to enable you to have more money to pay for college. And again, financial aid can consist of 4 pieces. There's grants, scholarships, loans, and the last piece is work study. You may get all of these, you may get some of these, you may get none of these, but those are the 4 main components. And there are 2 basic types of work study. There's federal work study and there's non-federal work study. Basically, federal work study means you're working off campus in most cases, and it comes through the federal government. In either type of work study, it's usually about 10 or 15 hours a week that the student will be working. And it's compensated on an hourly rate, and rather importantly, schools have very different compensation rates. So you want to check, if you're interested in work study, you want to check with the college that your child is going to go to and see how much they do compensate. In order to get any sort of work study, you have to apply for it. And you have to apply for it on that online application that I talked about in episode 1. It's called the FAFSA. That sort of bizarre name. There is a line on the FAFSA, and I think it's line 31 right now, and it says something like that. It asks the question, are you interested in being considered for work study? You have to kind of check that box, yes, I am interested, in order to be considered for work study, whether it's federal work study or non-federal work study. And one important thing that I did mention in episode 1 is that the FAFSA does have a deadline. Now, this sounds like a complete no-brainer, but frankly, people all around the country miss this deadline, and I've known some of them personally miss it by 1 day, and there's not much of a chance you're going to get financial aid. So what I like to say is, and what I did was, make a sign for yourself. Put it someplace where you're not going to miss it, that has the deadline on it. Okay, so back to what was it? SpongeBob's comment. Does it even make sense to apply for work study? Is it even worth it? Can it make a significant contribution? So let's run some simple numbers and see. We're going to do a sort of a real life example. We're going to take a state school, that's University of Massachusetts. Now, University of Massachusetts, big college, 28,000 students, high academic standards, good school. Price of this school is $32,000 a year. And that is a full freight cost for the whole thing, for room, board, tuition, fees, even books. That's the price that you pay with no financial aid. However, most students do get financial aid. So the actual price, the average price that a student will pay at University of Massachusetts, or UMass as we call it, is $21,400, about $10,000 less, a little bit more than $10,000 less than the sticker price. So let's look at some work study positions at UMass and see how much they compensate at. So right now they're compensating at $12.75 an hour. So if you have a student that does work study of 14 hours a week across the semester, which is basically 15 weeks, they might be able to do 16, but let's just say 15 to be conservative. That will give a total earnings for that semester of $2,678. So that's for one semester. Over the course of the year, we multiply this by 2. That's $5,355 in work study money that the student could potentially earn. So if we look at the average cost, $21,400 that most students pay with financial aid, and we look at how much work study can contribute, it's about 25%. So to go back to SpongeBob's comment, If you could use work study to pay for about 25% of your annual college costs, that is a significant contribution. So SpongeBob, I think it might make sense for you to consider work study. At least check off line number 31 on the FAFSA, and then you can think about it and determine whether or not you want to do it. If you have any questions about these calcs that I ran through, just put the questions in the comments and I'll try to answer them. So I want to come back to the different kinds of work study real quick. So we talked about federal work study programs and non-federal work study programs. In order to be in a federal work study program, your college has to participate. So you can check that out with your financial aid office. The earnings are at least minimum wage and frequently they're above. Also with the federal work study, it is many times off campus. So your child may need to have transportation to get to and from work. It's frequently at a nonprofit or a public institution or something like that. Let's look at some typical jobs that you could get in work study. You might work in the library, work in a residence hall, in the cafeteria, in the bookstore. You might be a research assistant or a teacher's assistant. You might do tutoring. Now I really focus on money in paying for college, but there's another reason to do work study as well, and that is it opens up the student to additional experiences that can be growth experiences, experiences that you can't have in the classroom or lecture hall setting. So there are just many, many different sort of enriching opportunities that you can get in doing work study. So this is the end of part 3, and I was anticipating that this would be like a 4-part series, but now I'm starting to think, we're really going into, it could be 7 or 8 parts. So stay tuned, there will be other parts specifically about using this team approach to pay for college, but I hope this one was useful in considering work study as part of your child's financial aid. See you on the next one.